One day a few years ago, I was out mowing my lawn. The sky was blue. This is actually a picture from that day. As I mowed, the world got dark, not unlike a few weeks ago. But this darkness wasn't caused by the moon getting in front of the sun. This darkness was called a derecho. This is a 60-mile wide storm with severe everything. 100-mile-an-hour plus winds, extreme amounts of rain, lightning, and thunder, and me hiding in my tiny metal shed from what I thought was going to be my end. I watched my lawnmower blow across the lawn. This storm came out of nowhere. There was no weather forecast. There was nothing in the forecast that indicated rain. But suddenly, as quick as the eclipse descended on us, I'm hiding. What we expect to happen with these storms in the future is that we expect them to get bigger. Climate change is going to change these storms from a 60-mile wide storm to a 400-mile storm. And as it blew through Iowa, as it blew through Illinois, it became known as the most expensive storm in history. The models, the ways we see the world, all of these categories that we use to save ourselves time, they're not really working anymore. We need to start seeing the world differently. We need to start looking at problems differently. Hello, my name is Nicolas LaLone. I'm an instructor over at IGM, where I mostly concern myself with making boxes to think outside of. This is my letter to the future. Now, I want to start my letter to the future by talking about myself, not because of ego or any reason to brag about myself, but just because, much like all of you, where I'm from is what I've become. And where I began was as a first-generation student. In fact, I was so first generation that I was the first member of my family to leave Ohio since before it was Ohio. I left because I wanted to understand what humanity was. I wanted to know how humanity was becoming, what humanity was becoming, and why. But what I quickly discovered was that I was naive. You can't learn who people are by simply talking to them. We are assemblages, complex assemblages of billions of different interactions over the course of a day. But what I found as I worked in as many different industries as I could was that I would start using shorthands. I would start using categories to label people, to understand people, to save myself time and energy. What happened from that moment on was that I began trying to find new ways to examine people, new ways to understand people. And when I finally entered college at the age of 25, I began as an electrical engineer. But this wasn't enough. I wanted to understand who we were, not just make stuff. So then I went into history, communication, comm studies, anthropology, and eventually I settled in sociology, not because it's a discipline that I wanted to get into, but a woman by the name of Susan Day actually came and said, "Nick, we're going to calm the chaos of your mind. I'm going to teach you how to actually start looking and understanding people." Now, one of the issues with this is that as I start talking to people, as I start examining people as a sociologist, I can start unpacking some portions of who we are, but when I get to objects, when I get to our stuff that we make, I couldn't actually do it. And so I went through a master's, my bachelor's and my master's, and when I went to enroll as a PhD student, I went into information science and technology, human-computer interaction, computer science, human-robot interaction. But I went from the extreme version of only being able to talk to people to now not being able to talk to people unless I just called them users. I was stuck in a binary. I was stuck between the stark boundaries between two different disciplines. This frustrated me because this was the same thing that I had noticed as this naive kid from Ohio. I was labeling people to save time. I was creating all of these categories of things, and I was doing the same thing as an academic. And so what I began to look for was a place where I could assemble everybody. I could assemble all of our stuff, all of our things, into this one cohesive whole. Because when we get down to binaries, what happens is we have all sorts of assumptions we can make with them. Democrat or Republican, male or female. I needed to transcend the boundaries of the disciplines that I was a part of. And to do that, I started to look for a domain that I could actually create a career out of. What I ended up discovering was that in the midst of disaster, in that story of me hiding in my shed, I forgot who I was. I had transcended all of the boundaries of what it means to be human. I had dispensed with all of those moments, those individual moments where I suddenly was able to transcend and become just a human being in our awe and raw potential. And what happened within that is I became transdisciplinary. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a word or a prefix that I keep using, which is trans. It means this: across, beyond, or on the other side of. And we hear it quite often in society today. We hear it in words like translucent, transcribe, transplant, or a word that has an immense amount of meaning right now, which is transgender. The trans community has been working to be seen, to be heard, to be legitimized for most of my life, and especially the lives of the students who are getting ready to graduate now. This isn't a talk about that specific community. Instead, what it's about is the consequences of that activity that I see not only in the classroom, but in my general life, or in my life in general. What I see can be boiled down to two very specific sentences, and I'm sure you guys know what they are. What are your pronouns? And how should I refer to you? This simple move does a lot. And for most people, or for people especially my age or older, might roll our eyes a little bit and go, oh God, here we go again. But think about what that simple act does. So look at me, for example. You know that I am married, I have a wife, so I'm heteronormative, probably cisgendered. I seem to be presenting as the same sex that I was born as. I'm wearing a Dungeons & Dragons t-shirt, and I'm in the School of Interactive Games and Media, so I'm probably nerdy, a little portly, so I enjoy food. But talking about where I came from as a first-generation student, working on farms, never going to a grocery store before I was like 12. All of these things are missing. And so what trans is asking us is to take one step past what we see in the surface. It's asking us, okay, you're masking, you're presenting yourself as this now, but tell me a little bit about you, this authentic person that I see before me. I want to go a little bit backwards now to disaster. I talked a little bit about it. I concern myself with a binary, normalcy versus disaster. In the blue sky times, this is going to be the normal days, we can have things like Springfest. We can have a color run. I think this is from Springfest a couple years ago. We might have these moments, these problematic areas where maybe we'll fail a test, get into a car accident, but those don't necessarily stop us. Inversely, or I guess the other side of this binary, is that the dark sky days, me, again, hiding in my tiny shed, hoping that I would live long enough to get back into my house. In the dark sky days, everything's gone. Everything that we had expected to exist is just not there anymore. And in its place is absolute chaos. And the way that we react to this is to want to restore normalcy. We want to restore our routine. But the issue with seeing it this way, this is a surface level issue. The disaster, especially one like this, began way before an earthquake or a hurricane came. We bulldozed natural protections to water and put up a strip mall or housing development. We use these categories that use surface level variables. What's your ethnicity? What's your socioeconomic background? What's your income? To define who the riskiest populations are in a municipality. These all have tremendous problems. Because when we get down to it, these systems or these surface level issues have been creating problems for years, and we have been handing those problems off to the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. And the group of people who are getting ready to graduate now are going to be the first generation that can't hand these problems off to their kids. We have to start meeting these head on. And so to do this, we need that trends mindset. We need that moment where me, as a person, is seeking not just what's on the surface, but what's under it. And so, in order for us to actually meet the problems of where we're going and where we've been, we need to start transcending not only innovation, but the way that we identify problems and the way that we think about solutions. We can see this in almost every industry that our students are going into. Every industry is in the midst of shrinking, flailing about, faltering. The way that we were is changing very quickly now. And we need you, all of you who are graduating now, in every way that you can possibly be. Thank you.